welcome. We all know tensions at the India-China border along the line of actual control are now at some of their highest levels since the 1962 war. Both sides have thousands of troops in the region. There is a military buildup. Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has met his Chinese counterpart in Moscow in the first high-level contact of its kind since May. More recently, on the 29th and 30th of August, India accused Chinese forces of trying to seek more territory, but Indian Army troops, including special forces, seized a number of hills that dominate a strategic valley. The aim of my conversation today with General Bikram Singh, the former army chief, is actually threefold. One, to try and understand the situation on the ground as it exists. Number two, what does the domination of India in South Pangong really mean? And thirdly, does the solution lie in the domain of diplomacy? General Bikram Singh, thank you very much for joining us here on Newsworthy. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Anubha. It's a pleasure being on your show. And let me compliment you at the very outset for having started your own YouTube channel. It's a great thing and wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, General Singh. I want to start with Moscow, where, as we know, Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has met his Chinese counterpart. All that we know of that meeting is that it lasted for about 2 hours, 20 minutes, and everyone is trying to read into the body language of that meeting. My question to you is, what do you believe could have transpired? And do you think anyone was expecting anything concrete to come out of a meeting like this?
Look, Anubha, I think at that level, what would have happened is that, they would have discussed the situation, what's going on, and what our intent is, the second and third order implications of a conflict being over there. But I personally feel it was an initiative, a diplomatic initiative, which translated into the political dialogue between the two defense ministers, perhaps to open the avenues for further discussions. Because we've been having discussions so far at the military level, at the diplomatic level, but political leaders had not met. And what I can say is that perhaps this may lead on to the discussions taking place at the even higher level, at the level of the Prime Minister and Xi Jinping at some time to come. But of course, depending on the preconditions that have been laid down by India in terms of China getting back to the positions which they had occupied prior to 5th of May, that is status quo ante, because that is one condition that we have laid out. But otherwise, from such discussions, it's very difficult to gauge what exactly is happening. Both sides would have actually expressed their, point of view, their concerns, their aspirations, what's going on ground and why they have done it. But I think the endeavor would be to take home a lot of, concerns of each other and then formulate a strategy, evolve a strategy to deal with the impending situation. But I think it's a good beginning, and I'm an optimist. I personally feel that things might open up in terms of ensuring that we find peaceful, resolution to this imbroglio.
General Singh, why do you believe that this political reach, so to speak, has come from the Chinese at this point in time, considering this particular standoff has been on from the 5th of May, as you've said? Why now?
See, Anubha, I think Chinese have opened far too many fronts. And I think it was a misplaced, assumption by the leadership in China that, time had come. Time was actually ripe for them to come to the world's center stage. The other thing is they never expected this kind of a response from India. Because I remember, earlier we were very timid with regard to China. And whenever something of this nature happened, we would try and resolve it only diplomatically, and our people would fly across to Beijing, meet them. Discussions used to be there to resolve the issue. But I think there is a great change, a metamorphosis that has, come about in terms of our national strategy with regard to using a realism, template in dealing with our foreign players, especially those who are antagonists to our national interests, for example, Pakistan and China. And you would have seen that from a very idealistic approach of dealing with our neighbors, Pakistan and China, we have adopted a far more realistic approach wherein the use of force is one of the components. So while we are doing our best to resolve the issue diplomatically. But then we are not, I would say, putting the use of force on the back burner. It is a very much an option. And that is the reason China today is actually, if you ask me frankly, doesn't know what to do. So having opened so many fronts, having India now staring into its eyes, I think the only way out is to start a dialogue and get out of this situation so that it can pursue its international, its global goals, which are otherwise going to get stalled. If it gets into an aggression with us, its aim of becoming a global power are going to get retarded.
So I think there are a number of threads that answer leads me to. I want to talk about the multiple fronts China has opened a little later. I want to first talk about the events of 29th and 30th August, where some would say India preempted the Chinese, we blocked the Chinese troops, and we occupied what would be tactically dominating features in the Chushul sector. Why could we have not done this earlier?
Look, Anubha, firstly, we are today occupying dominating heights on our side, number one. Number two, yes, we preempted the Chinese because there were indicators alluding to the Chinese coming in. There were, certain amount of suspicious activity which was noticed by our patrols which are in those areas. And that is the reason we mobilized our troops and we occupied those positions. Now, why didn't we do it earlier? You see, the point is, we always give the adversary a chance. Because perhaps we were thinking that wherever the Chinese have come now, that's for all. They will not try any more avenues to open up. But then the commanders on ground, they kept their options open. And also, let's be very clear, we had to build up our resources. And so after having built up the resources, we have the adequate combat power now to take on various contingencies wherever they crop up along the line of actual control. So from that point of view, it had to be delayed a bit. One, to gauge the intent, and number two, to build up our combat power.
So
and more importantly is, Anubha, combat power is fine, but the ability to sustain that combat power. You see, in mountains, there's an old adage which is that, and you would have heard of it, in your life, that mountains eat up troops because you want to hold. There's a tendency to occupy every piece of ground. You have one, spur, one hillock leading to the other height. So you keep occupying those. So from that point of view, you have to carry out a detailed appreciation, wait and watch, and then go and occupy the vulnerable spots. So this was one of the vulnerable spots which could have been exploited by the Chinese, but also strategically it has given us a deep insight, a deep look into the Chinese territory and gauge their build-up and gauge their intent.
I have two parts to my next question. One, taking off from where you left. In your experience, so you believe this was not a delay, this didn't come late, this was well in time. We had a detailed appreciation of the ground and then we made this move. My second question is, sir, there are conflicting reports as to who really controls some of these commanding heights, specifically the ones that have come in question in multiple reports in the media are Black Top and Helmet Top, whether these were always Indian positions and we have continued to stay on our side of the line of actual control. My question to you is slightly broader. What has happened with us occupying these advantageous positions? Have we sort of wrested the advantage back from the Chinese, or have we only consolidated our defenses? How do we understand this?
It's the consolidation of our defenses. You see, this kind of a movement always goes on, and both sides always jockey, from one position to the other to occupy a position of advantage. And that's what we have done. It's in our own territory. Let's be very clear. It's on our side of the line of actual control. So it's our territory, it's our desire, and whenever we want to occupy and which heights we want to occupy. But these have been occupied based on a very detailed appreciation at the operational and tactical level, because they give us advantage and would have given advantage to the Chinese had they come and occupied. And that's where, Chinese are actually scuffled. They're peeved with regard to this, because we are looking now into their position, Moldo, and we can see their build-up. That's one of their bases over there across. And we can see their tanks, their artillery guns, their other infantry echelons, wherever they are deployed. So any move occurring for any offensive, actions against us, we'll be able to monitor, dominate, and also, bring accurate fire on them.
But in the larger axis, do Chinese continue to still hold the advantage?
Look, no, it's not like that. You see, the point is, we've occupied our area, they've occupied theirs. We have deployed most of, along the entire LAC, the McMahon line, that's the eastern, middle and the western sector. So we are poised to take on any contingency, because you see the intent of the Chinese has been different this time. The earlier face-offs, Anubha, they were actually masterminded at the military level. This one actually has been masterminded by Xi Jinping. It has a political intent. So there are a number of reasons which I can spell out as to why Xi Jinping would have done this, but which I've said, brought out these earlier in a number of shows. But the point is that Chinese came in, they wanted to, their intent was hostile, they had offensive designs, we have occupied our defensive positions, and we are prepared to take on any further incursions by the Chinese.
Would your answer be similar if I put the question that during your tenure as army chief, you handled the Depsang transgressions in 2013 very, very effectively? Is there a difference between this time, and would your answer be similar to what you said?
No, the difference was definitely that, you see, after 22 or 23 days, they had gone back from Depsang, and that had been the trend in the past. So, and that is one of the reasons I would say we cannot hold, the present leadership responsible for what has happened. Because, agreed that they had mobilized for training. We should have gauged the intent as to why they had mobilized for training. But, given the past template where they used to come in and then go back, to show their, and we used to do the same thing. And let me tell you, people do not understand. Do you know our patrols, Anubha, are at least 3 to 4 times more than Chinese? I've commanded the Eastern Army. We in the past, we talked of Chinese activism, Chinese assertiveness. But let me tell you, we are far more active and assertive where required. So the point is, Depsang, they had gone back. This time, they have decided to stay on. Reason being, as I said earlier, Depsang in 2013 had a military intent of just showing up to which area they thought that was their line of actual control, and then they went back. Similarly, our patrols would go across and show up to which area our LACV thought was up to, and this was the ongoing this thing. But now it's a political intent wherein they will come and dug their heels in Finger 4 area, in the area of Depsang. That what they have done. So from that point of view, there's a difference.
I think you've touched upon this in a previous question, that this is possibly the first time so many transgressions have happened at multiple points and in the numbers that they have happened. What is the larger strategic objective? Why is China doing this now?
See, I think China perhaps was slightly insecure based on our very, I would say, prudent statements which we came out with, that look, the entire J&K is ours, Exide chain is ours, and rightly so it is. I mean, I would say for the last 30 or 40 years, we've been talking in terms of this. So, but redrawing of the map and all that perhaps bothered it. Then perhaps to express its solidarity with Pakistan, because what's happened in the abrogation of Article 370, it perhaps wanted to express its solidarity with Pakistan. Xi Jinping has also been under a lot of pressure as far as China is concerned. There's a rising anti-Xi Jinping sentiment, rising sentiment against the Communist Party of China for reasons their policies have not been correct. Like, for example, economy. If economy is in downward spiral, it is because the present regime, CPC, has been giving more importance to the state-controlled enterprises. And coupled with this also, when you see in the external domain, Xi Jinping has been exploiting BRI initiative to not only get its foothold, and then expand and even take land, real estate in those countries. There are a large number of examples where I can quote you this. Look at Sri Lanka, look at some of the Central Asian republics. People are concerned. So people are getting into debt trap. BRI is being manipulated to get countries into debt trap. The biggest mistake made over there. Second is that they thought India would buckle under pressure and accede to what they are doing. But this time we are looked into the eyes and we are prepared to take them on.
Let me try and stitch this conversation towards its end, General Bikram Singh. Right from the 5th of May up till now, many would say that there have been lacuna as far as the Indian side is also concerned. There were perhaps intelligence reports that were available both to the government of the day and the Indian army that weren't taken seriously. The clashes in which we lost 20 soldiers, the circumstances around that have still not been clear. The lack of communication in a sense as to what's really happening on the ground. I remember the Kargil time when there were these constant briefings. In your analysis, how would you sum up how India has responded from the 5th May right up till now?
I think, Anubha, we have responded very well. As regards certain anomalies, certain lacunae which you have talked about, I think at the end of this, there will be a proper study, like we had the Kargil Review Committee, which was set up by the Prime Minister then Atal Bihari Vajpayee after the Kargil War in 1999, which actually went on to have the group of ministers giving their recommendations in 4 different facets of national security, including intelligence. And I think from that point of view, I think we need to wait and watch. It may be, I would say, imprudent on my part and also premature to talk in terms of any anomalies. I think because that impacts the national morale, and it will be to the advantage of our adversary. So I think we have moved very well. We need to continue like this. The nation has to actually be together at this point of time behind the political leadership, the military leadership, to make sure we can take on Chinese in the right earnest.
Okay. Just as a final question, sir, do you believe the situation on the ground as it exists today is likely to continue for the next couple of months? And in your strategic opinion, what would be the best case scenario and the worst case scenario that we could look ahead?
See, Anubha, I feel what has happened, the meeting of Shri Rajnath Singh ji with the General Wei of China, it actually depends on that as to what extent there may be a drawdown in our deployment. That's one thing. But I personally feel that with the kind of distrust which has cropped up over the last 3 months, I do not think that it would be wise to take any chances of in terms of diluting our defensive deployment. So from that point of view, I personally feel that catering for a worse situation, we will have to go through these winters, keep our deployment, and over time see how China responds. Because after all, China is the one which was the aggressor. China is the one which came in. China has to prove its trust, and building trust takes time. It has to actually carry out certain activities where the trust is further strengthened. So let's wait and watch how it happens. But the worst case scenario to my mind is that I personally feel that given the impact on economies, given the fact that coronavirus has put the economies of the world into a downward spiral, I do not think war is an option for both the countries. So therefore, if at best something is to be done, it would be done by us at the local level. And I do not think it will expand or proliferate to a large extent, given the problems China is facing today. And also, let's not forget that we have also pressure being put in South China Sea. China knows very well. It's got the vulnerability not only against us, but also in the South China Sea. So from that point of view, I do not think China would try out anything more than what it has already done.
Has the line of actual control at this point in time been altered, sir?
Yes, I mean, let's be very clear. That's the reason we've been having negotiations. That's where they came in Depsang. They haven't gone back. Finger 8 is supposed to be the line of actual control, demarcation as per us. And Finger 4, they believe that. This was the no man's land. They should get back. They should get back to Finger 8. So from that point of view, if they do not, then they have suo moto, try to alter the line of actual control. And that is not acceptable to us. And that has been stated by the Honorable Prime Minister and the Honorable Raksha Mantri. We are not going to accept it. It's also been brought out by the Army Chief, by the CDS. So going by their proclamations, going by their announcements, I know very well that we will not accept this kind of incursions. And we will have to ensure that they pull back. And that is going to be the prerequisite for any further move at the diplomatic level.
Fair enough. General Bikram Singh, thank you very much for putting this all in perspective and for your time.
Thank you, Anubha. All the very best to you.